Hana Choi pressed her hand against the cold window of the transport ship and watched the massive space station grow larger. Apex Haven looked like a giant wheel spinning slowly in the darkness of space. She had seen pictures, but seeing it in person made her heart beat faster. This would be her home for the next 3 months. The station was huge. It housed researchers from 12 different alien species, all working together to understand each other better. Hana was a xenobiologist, which meant she studied alien life. Her specialty was even more specific. She studied how different species raised their children. At 28 years old, this was the biggest assignment of her career. The docking went smoothly. Hana grabbed her small bag and made her way through the airlock. The station's gravity felt good after days of light travel. A human man in a clean uniform waited for her. "Dr. Choi, I'm Commander Yoon. Welcome to Apex Haven." He shook her hand firmly. "Just Hana is fine," she said with a smile. Commander Yoon walked her through the main corridor. The station was beautiful. Curved walls glowed with soft light. She saw a group of tall reptilian Cess talking in their hissing language. A chim scuttled past, its insect body clicking on the metal floor. Through a window, she could see the shimmering form of a veil, the gaseous species that lived in special contained areas. "You'll have 2 days to settle in," Yoon said. "Then the Vraktor delegation arrives." Hana felt a chill. The Vraktor. She had studied them for years, but only through videos and reports. They were the galaxy's most feared predators. Their homeworld had gravity 3 times stronger than Earth. They were massive, powerful, and had never lost a war. Other species whispered about them in fear. "I've read the protocols," Hana said quietly. "No physical contact. Stay at least 10 meters away. Don't show teeth or make direct eye contact." Yoon nodded. The Vraktor requested this study themselves. "They want us to document their child-rearing methods. It's a huge honor, but also—" He paused. "Be careful, Hana. They're predators. We're prey in their eyes." Hana spent the next 2 days preparing her lab and reading everything she could about Vraktor cubs. The species was fascinating. They looked like enormous scaled panthers with bioluminescent stripes running along their bodies. The stripes changed color based on their emotions. Red meant aggression. Blue meant calm. Yellow meant hunting mode. Vraktor cubs were raised in special creches, away from their parents. The culture believed that comfort made children weak. Cubs were taught to be alone, to be strong, to never show fear or need. By the time they were adults, Vraktor were perfect warriors, cold, efficient, and emotionally controlled. But something in Hana's research bothered her. Every species she had ever studied needed physical comfort when young. Human babies needed to be held. Cess hatchlings needed warmth. Even chim larvae responded better to gentle care. Could the Vraktor really be so different? The day the delegation arrived, the entire station felt tense. Hana stood in the observation deck with other researchers, watching the Vraktor ship dock. It was a dark vessel covered in armor plating. The airlock opened. First came War Master Kreth. He was massive. Even on the video screen, Hana could see he was at least 3 meters tall. His scales were deep black with silver stripes that currently glowed a neutral green. His eyes were like molten gold, scanning everything. Behind him came Ambassador Tesh, slightly smaller but equally intimidating. Her stripes were purple and white. Then Hana saw them. The cubs, Rasha and Keth, were small compared to their parents, maybe the size of a large dog. Their scales were lighter, more gray than black. Their stripes barely glowed. They walked stiffly beside their parents, their little heads held high, trying to look strong. But Hana saw something else. She saw how their small bodies trembled slightly. She saw how their eyes darted around, wide and uncertain. She saw how they pressed close to each other when a Cess walked past. They were scared. They were babies, and they were scared. The formal introduction happened in the main conference room. Hana stood with the other researchers, maintaining the proper distance. War Master Kreth spoke in the common tongue, his voice deep and rumbling. "We come to share our methods. Vraktor cubs are the strongest in the galaxy. You will observe and document. You will not interfere. You will not approach. Our ways have made us what we are." Ambassador Tesh added, "The cubs will stay in secured quarters. They are learning independence. This is our way." Hana bowed respectfully. "We're honored to learn from you." That night, Hana couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about those cubs, the way they trembled, the way they looked so small and alone. She went to her lab early the next morning. Her workspace had a large window that looked into an observation area. The Vraktor had agreed to let the cubs spend time there each day while cameras recorded them. When Rasha and Keth entered, Hana's heart sank. They moved into the room and immediately went to separate corners. They didn't play. They didn't make sounds. They just sat perfectly still, their stripes barely glowing. This went on for days. Hana watched and took notes. The cubs were fed on schedule. They were clean. They were healthy by medical standards. But they never played. Never made happy sounds. They existed in perfect, miserable silence. On the 5th day, something changed. Hana was working at her desk, humming softly to herself. It was an old Earth lullaby her mother used to sing. She didn't even realize she was doing it. She looked up and froze. Both cubs were at the observation window staring at her. Their small faces were pressed against the glass. Their stripes had shifted to a soft, pale blue she had never seen before. Hana stopped humming. The cub's stripes immediately dulled. She started again, very softly. The blue returned. Rasha made a small sound, a tiny chirrup that Hana's microphones barely caught. Every day after that, Hana hummed while she worked. And every day the cubs came to the window to listen. They never made sounds when their parents were around. But with Hana alone, they seemed different. Softer. Younger. 3 weeks into the study, Hana noticed the cubs were becoming more agitated. During their rest cycles, when they were left alone in their quarters, the monitoring showed their stress levels spiking. Ambassador Tesh assured everyone this was normal. "They are learning strength through solitude," she said, her face showing no emotion. But Hana saw how the cubs' stripes turned dark gray during those times. How they huddled in corners. How they stopped eating as much. She wanted to say something. But she was human. She was prey. Who was she to question the ways of the galaxy's greatest warriors? Then came the night everything changed. The alarms woke Hana from a deep sleep. Red lights flashed in her quarters. Her communicator screamed with emergency alerts. "All personnel to quarters immediately. 2 Vraktor cubs have escaped containment." "This is not a drill. Repeat, predator cubs are loose on the station." Hana's blood ran cold. She jumped out of bed and sealed her door, following protocol. Through her communicator, she could hear the chaos. Security teams mobilizing, species evacuating their sections. Warmaster Kreth's voice, sharp with command, demanding updates. She pulled up the security feed on her wall screen. The footage showed Rasha and Keth slipping through an air vent in their quarters. Their small size let them fit where adults couldn't. They moved quickly through the ductwork. How did they breach the locks? Someone asked over the open channel. "Vraktor cubs are smarter than we thought," a security officer replied. "They learned the code by watching." The last clear footage showed them emerging from a vent near the human residential section. Then nothing. The cubs had vanished completely into the station's maze of corridors and maintenance spaces. Hana watched as hours passed. Security teams swept every section. Drones searched the air systems. Nothing. It was as if the cubs had disappeared into space itself. On the open channel, she heard Warmaster Kreth's voice growing more dangerous. His words were clipped, controlled, but she could hear the rage beneath. "Find them now." Ambassador Tesh spoke quietly. "If they've accessed an airlock, if they've been hurt," the unspoken implication hung in the air. The Vraktor would consider it an act of war. The fragile peace on the station would shatter. Another voice joined the channel, one of the SES researchers, her hiss translated into common tongue. "Perhaps they have done what young sometimes do. Perhaps they have gone into the dark by choice." Silence. The horrible possibility that the cubs, desperate and alone, might have chosen to end their suffering. Commander Yoon's voice came through, steady and calm. "We will find them. All teams continue the search. Dr. Choi, are you secure?" Hana stared at her screen. Something was bothering her, tickling at the back of her mind. She pulled up the footage again, watching the cubs move through the ducts. They weren't running randomly. They were moving with purpose, following a specific path. She traced their route on the station map. From their quarters, through the main ductwork, past the lab sections into the residential wings. They passed several access points where they could have exited, but they kept going. Going where? Hana felt her heart start to pound. She overlaid her own daily route on the map. From the lab to the cafeteria. From the cafeteria to the observation deck. From the observation deck back to her quarters. The cub's path followed hers exactly. "Oh no," she whispered. They were coming to her. But why? Were they hunting her? She was human, small and weak. Were they following some predator instinct? Or? She thought about those moments at the window. The humming. The soft blue stripes. The tiny sounds of contentment. Her communicator buzzed. Dr. Choi, we're seeing trace evidence in your corridor. Claw marks on the walls. We're sending a team to your location now. Hana stood up, her mind racing. If security teams burst into her corridor with weapons, if the cubs were startled, if they attacked out of fear. Commander Yoon, she said, her voice surprisingly steady. I request permission to check my quarters first, alone. Absolutely not. Those are predator cubs. They could be scared, Hana interrupted. They could attack if they see armed security. Let me look first, please. Silence on the line. Then War Master Kreth's voice hard as stone. The human may enter. She has 60 seconds. Then I come through the door, with or without permission. Hana's hands shook as she approached her door control. Through the corridor, she could see the claw marks on the walls. Small ones, child-sized. They led right to her door. The vent above her door had been pried open. Fresh scratches marked the metal. They were inside her quarters. She took a deep breath and opened the door. Hana stepped into her quarters slowly. The lights were still dimmed for sleep cycle. The room looked normal. Her desk with its scattered data pads, her small kitchen area, her bunk against the far wall. She listened. The station's usual hum surrounded her, but underneath it she heard something else. Soft breathing. Not one source, two, Rasha? She called softly, using the basic Vraktor pronunciation she'd learned. Keth, little ones? A sound came from near her bunk. A chirrup. The same sound Rasha made at the window when Hana hummed. Hana moved forward carefully. Her heart hammered in her chest. These were predator cubs. They had claws that could slice through metal. Teeth designed to tear flesh. But they were also babies. Scared babies who had escaped their cold, lonely room. She reached her bunk and looked down. Her breath caught in her throat. There, curled together on her bed, were both cubs. They had pulled her old flight jacket, worn and soft from years of use, over themselves like a blanket. Rasha's small claws were tangled in the fabric. Keth had his face pressed against her pillow. They were sleeping. Their stripes glowed the softest blue Hana had ever seen. Their breathing was deep and even. Rasha's tail was wrapped around Keth's body. They looked so small, so peaceful, so utterly unlike the image of Vraktor's strength and independence. They looked like what they were, children who needed warmth and comfort. Hana felt tears burning in her eyes. They hadn't been hunting her. They had been seeking her. Her scent, her warmth, the comfort she represented. Her communicator buzzed softly. Dr. Choi, report. 30 seconds. Hana sat down carefully on the floor beside her bunk. She kept her voice low and gentle. I found them. They're safe. She paused, looking at the sleeping cubs. They're sleeping. The door burst open. War Master Kreth filled the doorway, his massive form blocking the light. 4 Vraktor warriors stood behind him, weapons ready. Their stripes blazed combat red. Kreth's golden eyes locked onto the bunk. He froze. Ambassador Tesh pushed past him, stopped, and made a sound Hana had never heard before. A low, keening wail, grief mixed with something else. Realization. Shame. The warriors' stripes flickered from red to confused yellow. They had never seen their cubs like this. None of them had. Hana slowly stood up, placing herself between the adults and the sleeping cubs. She knew it was foolish. What could she do against fully grown Vraktor? But instinct made her protective. Don't wake them, she said quietly. Please, look at them. Kreth moved forward. His massive frame seemed even larger in Hana's small quarters. He could kill her with one swipe. She saw his claws flex, saw his stripes pulse with emotion she couldn't read. He looked down at his children, at Rasha, tangled in a human's jacket, at Keth, breathing peacefully for perhaps the first time in his young life. They are content, he said, his voice strange. The biometric readings. Their stress hormones are at minimum levels. Ambassador Tesh moved to the other side of the bunk. Her stripes had turned a deep purple. I have never seen them glow this blue. Not since they were born. We believed. You believed that isolation made them strong, Hana said softly. She wasn't accusing. Just stating fact. Keth stirred slightly. His small eyes opened, saw his parents looming above him, and instead of going to them, he burrowed deeper into Hana's jacket. His tiny claws gripped the fabric tighter. The simple action seemed to break something in Kreth. His stripes flashed through a dozen colors before settling on a dull gray Hana had never seen. The warriors behind him shifted uncomfortably. "My son fears me," Kreth said quietly. "He chooses a human scent over his own father." Hana took a careful breath. This was dangerous ground, but these cubs needed her to be brave. "He doesn't fear you," she said. He needs something you weren't taught to give him." "Weakness," one of the warriors growled. "Comfort is weakness, is it?" Hana asked. She gestured to the cubs. "Look at their vital signs. Their brain activity. Rasha's temperature regulation is perfect for the first time since she arrived. Keth's stress markers are almost zero. Is that weakness? Or is that what their bodies were designed to need?" She pulled up her datapad, hands shaking, and showed them her research. "Every species I've studied needs physical comfort when young. Warmth, touch, security. It's not cultural, it's biological. The brain develops better. The body regulates better. Cubs that get comfort become stronger adults, not weaker ones." Ambassador Tesh reached out one clawed hand toward Rasha, then pulled back. "Our ways are ancient. For thousands of generations, we have raised cubs in solitude. It made us the greatest warriors in the galaxy." "Did it?" Hana asked gently. "Or did you become great warriors despite it? What could you be if your cubs felt safe? If they trusted you? If they knew strength and warmth could exist together?" Kreth's stripes cycled again. Red, yellow, blue, gray. He was fighting something internal, some battle between what he had been taught and what he was seeing. Rasha made another small chirrup in her sleep. Her stripes pulsed in time with Keth's, the telepathic pack bond that Vraktor shared making them synchronize. "They're dreaming," Hana said softly. "The REM patterns show it. They're finally getting the kind of sleep their brains need." "Why here?" Kreth demanded, though his voice was quieter now. "Why your quarters? Why you?" Hana sat back down on the floor. She needed to be non-threatening, needed them to understand. "I hummed to them," she admitted. "While I worked, I didn't think about it. It's something humans do. We make soft sounds to soothe children. They came to the window every day to listen. I think they associated me with comfort, with warmth. My jacket holds my scent and body heat. My quarters play soft music. To them, this place feels safe." She looked up at the towering predators. "I'm not trying to take them from you, but they're babies. They need what all babies need." Silence filled the room. The warriors shifted, uncomfortable with emotions they had been trained to suppress. Ambassador Tesh's stripes were still that deep purple. Sadness, Hana realized. Finally, Kreth spoke. "Show me. Show you what?" "Show me what they need. You are a researcher of young ones across species. You say our ways harm our cubs. Prove it. Teach us what we have forgotten." It was a command, but also a plea. The next days were strange and delicate. Hana worked with War Master Kreth and Ambassador Tesh in her quarters with the cubs present. The station's other species watched in shock as the fearsome Vraktor delegation spent hours in a human's small room. Hana started simple. "Temperature," she explained, showing them data. "Vraktor cubs can't regulate their body heat as well as adults. Your homeworld is warm. The station is cold for them. They were sleeping poorly because they were literally cold." She demonstrated with blankets, with heated pads, showed them how the cubs immediately settled when warmth was provided. "We believe discomfort builds strength," Tesh said quietly, watching Keth knead a soft blanket with his small claws. "Purring? Some discomfort, yes," Hana agreed. "But constant discomfort just builds stress. Stress hormones in young brains cause development problems." She showed them research from a dozen species, showed them brain scans, showed them how cubs raised with comfort and security actually became better hunters as adults. Their brains developed better problem-solving abilities, better emotional control, better pack bonding. Kreth absorbed the information like a warrior studying battle tactics. "The creches, the isolation. We thought we were making them strong. You were making them survive," Hana said gently. "But survival and thriving are different things." She taught them about touch, how to hold the cubs, how Vraktor had scent glands that released bonding pheromones but only with skin contact. The cubs had been literally starving for their parents' scent. The first time Ambassador Tesh held Rasha properly, the cub's stripes blazed blue so bright it lit the room. Tesh made that keening sound again, but this time it wasn't grief. It was joy. Hana taught them about sounds. Fraktor could make a deep rumbling purr. In adults it was rare, used only in mating, but the frequency was perfect for soothing cubs. When Kreth first purred for Keth, the tiny cub scrambled into his father's massive arms and went completely limp with contentment. The War Master's stripes flickered through every color before settling on a blue so deep it was almost purple. "I have never felt him trust me before," Kreth said, his voice rough. Days turned into weeks. The cubs transformed before everyone's eyes. They played. They made sounds. They bonded with their parents in ways that shocked the other Vraktor warriors. But they still came to Hana's quarters every day. Still curled up with her jacket. Still chirruped when she hummed. "They have bonded with you," Tesh said one day, watching Rasha sleep against Hana's leg while Hana worked. "This is unusual. Fraktor typically bond only with their own kind." Hana stroked Rasha's scales gently. "Maybe that's changing too." Word of what was happening spread through the station. Other species started watching the Vraktor cubs play with their parents in the observation areas. Started seeing Kreth carry Keth on his shoulders. Started hearing the purring sounds echoing through the corridors. The galaxy's most feared predators were learning to be gentle. One evening, Hana was writing up her research notes when Commander Yoon called her to his office. "You know this is going to cause controversy," he said. "You're suggesting that the Vraktor's entire child-rearing culture is wrong." "Not wrong," Hana corrected. "Just incomplete. They created incredible warriors. But they could create incredible warriors who are also emotionally healthy." Yoon smiled. "You're going to publish this?" "With the Vraktor's permission, yes." "Do you understand what this means? The Vraktor are the most powerful military force in the galaxy. If they change how they raise their young, if they become not just strong but also emotionally bonded, they'd be unstoppable," Hana finished. "But in a different way. Not through fear. Through loyalty. Through actual pack bonding." She thought about Kreth, who now spent every rest cycle with his cubs, about Tesh, who purred them to sleep every night, about Rasha and Keth, who were growing stronger and braver every day, not despite the comfort but because of it. "Humans conquered Earth not because we were the strongest predators," Hana said quietly. "We were middle tier at best. We won because we bonded, because we cared for our young, because we worked together. Maybe that's the real strength?" Yoon nodded. "That's very HFY of you." Hana laughed. "HFY? Humanity, fuck yeah," Yoon said with a grin. "It's an old Earth phrase. It means humans are awesome not despite being soft, but because of it." 3 months passed quickly. Hana's assignment was ending. She had written a comprehensive paper titled Predatory Species and Parental Bonding, a Human Perspective. The Vraktor High Council had read it. They were sending researchers to Apex Haven to learn more. On Hana's last day, War Master Kreth requested a formal meeting. The ceremony was held in the main conference room. All species on the station attended. Hana stood in her simple jumpsuit, feeling very small among the gathered aliens. Kreth stood before her, his stripes glowing a formal silver. Ambassador Tesh beside him, and between them, Rasha and Keth, now visibly healthier, their scales shinier, their eyes brighter. "Dr. Hana Choi," Kreth said formally, "you have done something no warrior has ever accomplished. You have changed the Vraktor." He gestured, and one of his warriors brought forward a bundle, Hana's old flight jacket. "The cubs wish you to keep this," Kreth continued. "But they offer you something in exchange." Rasha and Keth stepped forward. Rasha carried a small blanket, soft, woven from Vraktor fiber, embedded with their scent glands. It smelled like home, like family. Keth carried a small crystal. "Our stripes," Tesh explained. "We shed scales sometimes. We have embedded our scales into this crystal. Our cubs' scales, too, so you carry our pack bond with you." Hana took the gifts, tears streaming down her face. "I don't know what to say." "Say nothing," Kreth rumbled. "But know this. When we first came here, we saw humans as prey, as soft, as weak." He paused, his massive hand gently touching Rasha's head. The cub leaned into the touch, purring. "We were wrong. You are not prey. You are not weak. You taught us that the fiercest warriors can be gentle protectors. You showed us that strength and compassion are not opposites. They are partners. Ambassador Tesh stepped forward. Our entire species will change because of what you have taught us. Cubs across Vraktor space will now know their parents' warmth. We'll know comfort. We'll grow stronger because of it, not despite it. She touched her chest where her heart would be. You conquered us without weapons, without force. You conquered us with kindness. That is true strength. Rasha chirruped and pressed against Hana's legs. Keth followed, both cubs tangling themselves around her. We thought humans were prey, Kreth said, his voice carrying through the silent room. We were wrong. You are survivors who conquered your world not despite your compassion, but because of it. You are strong in ways we are only beginning to understand. He placed one massive clawed hand on his chest in a Vraktor salute. The Vraktor honor you, Hanachoy. You are pack-bonded to us. Always. The other Vraktor warriors in the room placed their hands on their chests. Then, one by one, every species in the room offered their own salutes. The Sess bowed their long necks. The Chim clicked their mandibles in respect. Even the Veil pulsed with honored colors. Hana stood there, 2 predator cubs wrapped around her legs, holding gifts from a species that used to terrify her, and realized something profound. Humanity's strength had never been about being the biggest or the strongest. It was about understanding, about compassion, about knowing that every being, no matter how fierce, needed warmth and connection. Later, as her transport prepared to leave, Hana stood at the observation window one last time. Rasha and Keth were there with their parents. The cubs pressed their small faces against the glass, their stripes glowing blue. Hana placed her hand on the window. Both cubs placed their tiny paws opposite hers. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for letting me help you. Kreth's voice came through her communicator. No, Dr. Choi, thank you. You gave us back something we had lost. You gave us back our hearts. As the transport pulled away from Apex Haven, Hana clutched the blanket and crystal close. She thought about how she had arrived 3 months ago, nervous and uncertain. How she had been taught that the Vraktor were monsters. How wrong everyone had been. They weren't monsters. They were people. People who had forgotten how to be soft. People who had confused strength with hardness. But they had remembered. And they had remembered because a human had shown them that compassion wasn't weakness. Hana smiled and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there on a distant Vraktor world, councils were meeting. Policies were changing. Cubs were being held by their parents for the first time in thousands of years. All because 2 scared babies had escaped their room and found a human's bunk, found a warm jacket, found someone who understood that sometimes the bravest thing anyone can do, predator or prey, is choose gentleness. The galaxy was changing, and it had started with a simple act of kindness. Humanity, fuck yeah, indeed. The end.